Welcome to Part 9, Ron's Lehigh River Valley, Allentown. Allentown is the largest city in the Lehigh Valley. It is situated just west of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where the Lehigh River flowing down from the Pocono Mountains makes a 90-degree turn to flow east to its confluence with the Delaware River at eastern Pennsylvania. It was founded by William Allen in 1762, a contemporary of William Penn. We are looking directly east. The photo shows three landmarks in this 1979 aerial. The PP&L Tower is the only one that's left today. The Atlanta Bus Barn, which once was the home of the Lehigh Valley Transit trolley cars, is at the lower right. A closer look shows the 8th Street Bridge and the Mack Trucks 5C plant, which closed in the early 1980s. The Hamilton Street Bridge over the Lehigh River is just behind the UGI gas tank. The view looking north shows the Reading Railroad Bridge over the Lehigh at lower right, with the Lehigh Valley Railroad just beneath it. Basin Street crossing is right at the lower center. It since has been rebuilt as an underpass. The Central New Jersey Station is left center. Route 22 bridge at the top left, with the Tillman Street Bridge at the center. The Western Electric plant just east of it, where once thousands worked in assembly of transistors. George Hart's 972 on a fan trip in 1983 at Basin Street. Lower track is the Lehigh Valley Railroad connection. Looking west at Basin Street in 1985. Reading 2102 is on a fan trip. Evening view of Allentown looking west in 1984. The PP&L tower looks like a skyrocket ready to take off. Guess who pays the electric bill? A gang of Conrail units crossing the Lehigh Bridge at Allentown. George Hart's 972 on the Reading Iron Horse Ramble in October 1983. The Allentown paper featured the train yard in July 1978. Morning Call Allentown train yard, April 1982. West end of the hump yard, late 1940s. The only two types of diesels of the Lehigh and Hudson ever had owned. At one time they went all the way up past Lehigh. The yard was cut back down in the 1930s. Sometimes somebody on the wrong track at the wrong time, 1966. Wreck of the Scranton Flyer, East Allentown Yard, July 4th, 1906. Jersey Central Heritage Unit on the West Yard, May 2013. Morning Call newspaper featuring Black Diamond Club open house featuring the Allentown Jersey Central Station model. A 1/4-inch model Central New Jersey Station on Hamilton Street. This is on the east side of the station. The station on the west side in 1983. At the time, it was being remodeled into a nightclub. a Jersey Central Baldwin diesel and westbound trolley in 1949. Lehigh Valley Station is further up west up Hamilton Street. East and bound trolley crossing the Jersey Central tracks, about 1916. Note trolley wire covers over the railroad tracks. In case trolley pole becomes disconnected, car will still be electrified to drift past the railroad tracks. An ice storm has put the power off the two trolleys in front of the railroad station. Number 831, a Jersey Central Pacific type, has blocked traffic on Hamilton Street. Winter storms seemed a lot worse years ago, as evidenced by these two snowbound locomotives. Jersey Central freight stations were almost always more elaborate than their close-by Lehigh Valley Railroad ones. Passing the UGI gas tank. Note baggage car. The small passenger car switching yard between the CNJ and LV stations. There wasn't much room for this yard on the model layout, so a single track does it. Westbound Central New Jersey passenger train crossing the Lehigh Valley Railroad tracks near the station. A canopy was added about 1911 on the Central New Jersey station. By 1979, years after passenger service ended, the canopy was in shambles and was torn down. In 1948, the first American Freedom train visited Allentown. It was a great time to show off American Locomotive Company's new PA passenger diesels. This model is a Line L, actually a 3-rail model, on 2-rail tracks, just for the picture. The Lehigh Valley Railroad Station was the largest one in the Lehigh River Valley. It was built in the 1890s and lasted till the end of passenger service in 1961. After passenger service, it was used as social events and was offered to the Lehigh Valley Chapter National Railway Historical Society, but it was too big a structure to maintain, and it was demolished in the 1960s. Lehigh Valley's new PA diesels had a train eastbound about 1950. The John Wilkes stripped of its chrome trim. This has got to be during the war years when metals were extremely expensive for the war effort.
Much scrap of all kinds is still waiting to be gathered in. Old dishes, old pots and pans, knives and forks. You have hidden treasures in your home. Right now it is more precious to your country than gold. Take every bit of scrap you have to an official salvage depot. If you are not near a salvage depot, call a charity or a junk dealer. Get the scrap moving. That's the important point.
In better times, probably 1940, here she is in all her splendor. The Weaver model on the layout. A head shot taken in 1940 using Kodachrome film by a Lehigh Valley photographer. Comparing the John Wilkes and Black Diamond, these are Weaver models on the layout at Southeastern. They're very similar on the models, there are bigger differences though on the real ones. Headed north, Railroad West in 1941 just by the station. Diesel powered at the same location in 1951. The tower man was kept quite busy at this location. The Lehigh Valley Station foundation in 1979. Not much left. It was built over the Jordan Creek. Note the empty train yard at this time. In 1979, the crossing towers were still standing at the Hamilton Street Lehigh Valley Railroad crossing. A Lehigh Valley parlor observation in 1905. Center-bound trolley crossing the Lehigh Valley main line, about 1948. In rear is A and B meat packing plant, which will become America on Wheels Museum in 2008. 3 trolleys in front of the meat packing plant, about 1948. America on Wheels Auto Museum in 2008. Opening day at the museum, Saturday, April 12, 2008. Political speeches lasted over an hour before the ribbon cutting, including Allentown Mayor Palowski, who got himself into big political trouble later. Morning Call article about the opening of the museum, April 12, 2008. 1950 Chevy station wagon in front of the Mack truck exhibit. Bob Fletcher, he was president of the Large Scalers, with train display during the open house. Morning Call neighbors article about Bob's home and his garden railway. A year later, large-scale display at the museum. Note the Catholic Church at the left top. The Catholic Church in Phillipsburg, New Jersey. Finishing the model of the church. It was built as a gift to Phillipsburg historian Ronald Weinkoop's wife. Another year, another layout for the Christmas season. My own exhibit featuring the Jersey Central's Easton Station in G-scale. It's 6 feet long. The Hubcap Cafe at the museum is open to rental groups. A small G-gauge layout that you operate. One of the many rotating car exhibits, the taxi cab was used in the film It's a Wonderful Life, starring Jimmy Stewart. Toys for Tots at Christmas time has the G-scale trains running around the cars at the museum. George Kemmerer with the O-gauge layout. The train is a Mike's Train House model of the Freedom Train. The Freedom Train visited the area in '76. Here it is backing down the Allentown yard to Bethlehem Station. The Lego train layout. Everything is built completely in plastic. Tracks, trains, models, everything. It is hard to explain to anyone born after the 1950s. The euphoria of the new car craze was so great. It was unthinkable for a new car to be inferior in any way to the previous year's model. New car styles were a big secret till opening day. Here in the fall of 1962, at Easton, PA, still sits a 1957 Ford surrounded by a sea of Chevrolets. No price of new car in the window. In the 1960s, the horsepower race started to heat up. Here's a 1962 Chevrolet purchased from Newman Chevrolet in Allentown, with the 409 horsepower motor. Imagine getting an average of 6 to 7 miles a gallon in today's fuel climate, and even that was dependent on the movement of the right foot. This is the motor that the 409 Chevrolets came with. 409 horsepower with 2 great big gas-gulping carburetors, impossible in today's climate. A cartoon about new cars and what happened to our production in the United States over time. The rest of the world played catch-up. Any auto enthusiast should never miss the car show at Macungie, PA Park, just west of Allentown. Here artist Don Reed shows off his train and car paintings. The once upon a time powerhouse for the Lehigh Valley Transit, next to America on Wheels Museum, is under demolition here in 2010. Doug Peters' book on trolleys in the Lehigh Valley in full color is one of his books showing many rare trolley pictures. 3 trolleys on the 8th Street Bridge looking south, 1948. Lehigh Valley Liberty Bell Trolley headed south to Philadelphia on the 8th Street Bridge, 1941. No PP&L tower in the rear. Looking east during the ice storm, Lehigh Valley Station on right. Easton Limited on Hamilton Street. Both Lehigh Valley and C&J Railroad towers are visible in this 1948 photograph. Easton Limited eastbound, passing the Soldier and Sailors Monument at 7th and Hamilton Street. Trolley freight was also a big part of the business. This picture was taken in 1949. Center City, Allentown in 1949. Liberty Bell Depot, a close-up view of it, where you bought your tickets to go to Philadelphia. Liberty Bell Limited during the ice storm crossing Hamilton Street Bridge. Liberty Bell 8th and St. John Street, South Allentown. Car at 7th and Hamilton Street. South Allentown did not escape the ravages of the 1955 flood. Note the gas price, 18 9/10. The old courthouse on Hamilton Street in Allentown once had a Lionel standard gauge layout for a number of years. Back in 1979, Hess's department store sponsored a never-to-be-forgotten train show. Every floor had a train display. Fred Gross displayed standard gauge on the ground floor. Barbara Freedom displayed Lionel trains on the first floor. Train Collectors Museum display. Bob McAllister and Albert Auer from the Black Diamond Club on the second floor. My display on the third floor featured the Black Diamond Express on the Lehigh Valley Railroad Bridge at Easton, Pennsylvania. The top floor featured a lecture and slideshow. Kenny Beeler, who was once a Lehigh Valley Railroad employee, paints locomotives for a living. Kenny was furloughed after the time of the Central Takeover in 1976. Here he is with one of my locomotives. Pictured at the Allentown train show is Albert Edel. Al lived up in Hazleton. He had a large collection in business of brass locomotives. He had probably almost $1 million worth of brass in his cellar. He retired several years ago and sold the collection to someone in the Middle East.
This photo shows the last year the Lehigh Valley Chapter NRHS sponsored their long-running annual train show in Deeriff High School. Safety concerns by the school district and increasing costs prompted the group to move the show to the Schrin Community Center in Palmer Township the following year.
The Lionel Toy Train Company produced the most famous train set. Here it is with just two of the state cars on the bar at Steve's Cafe during a meeting of the Rusty Spike Group, a club of retired railroaders from Phillipsburg, New Jersey. A competing manufacturer brought out these cast aluminum models. The 1929 crash destroyed the company, but castings survived. They are known today as the Randall cars. The locomotive castings disappeared during the 1930s and were never offered for sale. Painted up and detailed. One is shown here with O-scale cars. We close out this video with a picture of Jim Danner at the Allentown Train Show Agricultural Hall in February 2020. Jim worked for the Blue Mountain and Reading Railroad. Jim was also Vice President of Lehigh Valley Chapter NHRS for many years. He passed away from a heart attack in 2021. He was just 64 years old. We will sure miss him.